Hello, my name is Elaine Leeder, and this is an interview called From Despair to Redemption, Jews, Spirituality, and Prison. This program is sponsored by the Institute of Jewish Spirituality and Society, where I am a fellow. The mission of IJSS is to advance scholarship, social transformation, and bringing Jewish spiritual knowledge to bear on the toughest challenges of contemporary society. We break down barriers between spheres of knowledge and practice, enabling long-term collaboration among scholars, social researchers, and human service practitioners. Please do visit us at ijss.org to find out more about what we do. In my capacity as a fellow, I've been speaking around the country about restorative justice using a Jewish spiritual lens. This year marks our first year with interviews online, bringing to you people who are engaging in the work on the ground with real folks, but imbuing what they do with a spiritual practice. To that end, in my first interview, I am bringing you Ms. Liz Margolies. Liz is a psychotherapist and a mother of a Jewish prisoner in a federal penitentiary in Connecticut. For the last few years, she's been running support groups for mothers of incarcerated Jews through the Aleph Institute and the Hinda Institute. This work builds community among the women by addressing the shame and increasing awareness of this invisible and underserved population. She's written several articles about mothers of incarcerated sons and is seeking to import the services that this population sorely lacks. I'm really pleased to introduce my friend Liz Margolies. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So I'm wondering if you might just tell us who you are, Liz, and what it is that you do, why I've invited you to be my first interviewee.
I think you invited me to be your first because our professional working relationship goes back over 30 years and has covered many topics. And so what's amazing now is that our work again overlaps. So I have been a psychotherapist in private practice for, I don't know, 45 or more years. And in that capacity, just as your work has changed, Elaine, I focused on different things. Then on February 14th, 2019, other people would call that Valentine's Day, at 6:15 in the morning, 11 federal agents stormed my apartment. And I had no idea what was going on. My experience with the criminal justice system or police officers was really around traffic violations. But these people were federal, wearing bulletproof vests, and probably had weapons, although, I'm like, right? Well, what's happening? And my naivete meant that I didn't know that I did not have to speak to these people without a lawyer present. And I'm ashamed, but I think it's important for the world to know that's how I deal with my shame. Just a little sneak preview, shame only exists in the dark. The way out of it is to bring it into the light. So I ratted out my son. I didn't do it immediately, but I was so easy to intimidate. It was very easy. And he was not, I live in New York City. He was actually not even in the state at the time. Okay, let's just leave my story aside. If you have follow-up questions, we can address those, Elaine. But I was ill-prepared, confused, and primarily terrified. And it took me, within hours, I got everybody a lawyer and everything was moving, but I did not understand the process or what this was going to be like. And one of the first things I noticed that it did over like the first few months was I didn't care about anything else in my life. And I had started a national cancer nonprofit that I was the executive director of. It was everything to me, in addition to my private practice. I didn't care at all anymore. This was consuming me. And once I kind of caught my breath, and I can't even say how long that took, but I'm going to say months, I began to say, how are other people dealing with this? Wait a minute. I can't be the only mother in this position, right? And I began to look into it, and I learned that one, there's barely anything out there about mothers, but that's terrible, because the second thing I learned is that mothers often do the lion's share of responsibility for their incarcerated sons, regardless of the age of the son and if they are married and have children. Mothers are one of the most stable relationships people have. So who's putting money in commissary? Who is being a liaison with the legal system? I am my son's secretary. I look up things on the internet for him. I manage his money. His counselor. I keep his spirits up. I do everything. And I then saw that I was not unusual in that way. And it's my son who told me about Aleph, which is a national organization, a Jewish organization devoted to helping prisoners and their families. And I had not even thought about the Jewishness of this experience. But I used Facebook groups. That's what got me through the first year and a half. There are multiple Facebook groups, mothers of incarcerated sons, those kinds of names, but there are like 5 or 6 of them. And there was a lot of Jesus in these. And I was like, yeah, bring it, whatever helps you. But I wasn't seeing that much about my people and what it meant. I mean, as a Jewish person, I have not lived the reality of mass incarceration. I have been very privileged. Of course, that was in some ways shattered on February 14th, but in many other ways, no. And therefore, because I have some privileges and experience, I thought, even though I was dealing with the same issues myself, that I could help other mothers. And so I asked Aleph, the Aleph Institute, would you like me to lead a group? You tell me what kind. I'll do anything. And they said, we would like someone to lead a group for mothers of sons with life sentences. Now, let me just say, my son does not have a life sentence. And it was, should I just keep going here?
Yes, please.
Okay, and it was kind of mind-boggling. I don't know whose phone that is, but if it's mine, I'm truly sorry.
Keep going.
Okay, so many of these women had their son in prison for 10 years, 15, 25, and I can do it that way. 25 years, and that scared me to my core. Inside, I thought, wait, I still need a support group. I'm never going to get over this, am I? But I have some clinical experience to draw on, and I simply said, well, it seems like many of you have been dealing with this for quite a while. What makes you want this group now? And what they said is, it's because we're Jewish. We don't know any other Jewish people, mothers, in this position. I need to talk to other Jewish mothers. Now, just to tell you a little bit more about this population, life sentence kind of means almost all of them, there was some murder involved. And none of these people live in New York City. They live in smaller places. And when somebody murders somebody in whatever kind of way, a crime of passion, whatever, a variety of things, it becomes very public. And many of the mothers I've worked with have had made-for-TV movies made about their families.
Hmm.
And I just want anyone who's listening to imagine the shame that that would bring on. They were invited by the filmmakers to be interviewed, and they said, no, no, no. But it's terrible. And in most cases, every year on the anniversary of the crime, the show is shown again. So if I'm talking to our listeners, I would like everyone to think about the insatiable appetite Americans, I don't know if it's beyond that, have in true crime stories. And that, you think it's fascinating. These are real people's lives and their pain.
Let me ask you a few questions, Liz, so that we can sort of focus a little bit. After your son was arrested, how much time has he been allocated or convicted for? So how long will you be dealing with all of this on your own level?
Thank you for asking me that. What I found as just a little side thing is that white people, when I tell them, because I am, as I keep saying, fighting the shame, and they say, oh, you have a son? Oh, where is he? Well, actually, he's in prison. And white people, I'm going to tell you, 85% do exactly this. Oh, what did he do? And I'm like, no, no. How much longer does he have? How are you doing? Do you get to visit him? I understand your curiosity, but no, this is not the most important question. What the sons did is never discussed. It doesn't matter. They're in, I'm trying not to curse, this is really hard. They are in the prison. And that's what we're dealing with. The crime shrine, like, that happened. Um,
How long is your son going to have to serve?
He 14 years, which, you go into the RDAP program, which is drugs. It takes off a year. Blah, 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 blah. He'll serve 10 and then go into a halfway house. And then he was convicted of a sex crime. So he will be on the sex offender registry probably for the rest of his life.
And how long has he served?
Um, 5.5 years. So we've got about 4.5 left.
And how is his prison time? How is he doing inside?
I feel always like I should whisper this or like knock on wood. He's doing unbelievably well. I, I his therapist once said to him, and he told me, you got to stop what you're doing. More than anyone I've ever met, you can't go to prison. And yet he has surprised us all. He's become a man. He went in at 26 and 27, I don't know, he's 32 now. He's doing incredibly well. He's working harder at everything than he ever worked.
Mhm. So he'll
I,
come out with some kind of a skill set and some rehabilitation of some sort.
I would say he will come out a man and a better human, but through no credit to the system. No one is even pretending to do anything resembling rehabilitation or even training. There are no programs. There is nothing. He's doing well because he's taking college classes because he's finally going to finish. He works out every day. He's become a really healthy eater. He's written a novel that I helped him get published. He's read in these 5.5 years, 700 books. And and when I said something, he asked me once to get it's not called a recipe, to crochet an animal that he wanted to make for someone. And I said, well, why don't you have that person teach you how to crochet? He said, I don't have any time. Oh, and he's studying Spanish on top of it.
Does he identify as a Jew in any way or Jewish in prison with chapel or community?
Well, that is a really interesting question. He's a super Jew now when he wasn't before. And I said, when you get out, do you think you're gonna like go to synagogue every Friday night? He said, if I have time, but I mean, I have so much to do. I don't understand how I'm gonna have a job and be able to read and write and work out and cook and find a relationship. But yeah, I do plan to. He's now, a de facto, he's the head Jew. Okay, my kid is, was raised by me. Okay, he was bar mitzvahed. I wanted him to have a sense of his roots, but he never wanted to do anything Jewish. He's reading Hebrew. The Jews in prison. Oh my God, what drama. There is not a service where somebody doesn't leave crying. People are fighting. What do they say? Put 10 Jews in a room, you get 11 opinions. But he's there to make a minyan every single day.
Every day or just Shabbat?
Every day he tries to help do that.
Remarkable, remarkable. And the mothers, the other mothers, are they well, actually I have two questions. One, this podcast or these interviews are related to spirituality. So he's doing the ritual, but has it informed his identity like yours? I mean, it seems as if on some levels being a Jew to you is more than ethnicity. It has some sort of deeper meaning for you. Has he had that experience? And do you have that experience?
This experience has not changed my feelings about being Jewish or God or anything like that. I am deeply Jewish. Jews are my people. And I mean, I have a friend who just started dating someone. They showed me a picture and I said, not Jewish. I mean, it's the first thing I think. But I am a dyed-in-the-wool atheist. And I did ask my son once, and I tried not to say, are you betraying me? I said, do you believe in God now? And he was like, oh, no, no. But this is really important to him.
So it's really the identity with the community and the ethnicity and the culture, et cetera, et cetera.
And, eating every meal in the sukkah. Yeah, I mean, he's there. He knows he's doing every holiday.
Yeah, he does the rituals. What
And
about the other mothers? Could you talk about some of the other situations that you've encountered, Liz? And what is it about the relationship and the therapy or the work that you do with that mothers? Could you describe some of it?
Well, it's a support group, so it's not a therapy group. And I encourage them to work with each other and feel that connection with each other because it is so isolating. So let me separate those two things out. Aleph is a very religious organization, as is the Hindu Institute, where I do another group for families, not just mothers. Of course, it's mainly mothers who come. Go to the waiting room for visiting in the prison. It's mainly mothers who are there. But that one's not limited to mothers. Many of those people are practicing their Judaism in a very real, weekly, daily way. But there is a range, let me just say, especially in the Aleph group, there is a range. But being in a Jewish group is of critical importance to these people. And I think, so as you said in your introduction, a lot of my work is about secrecy and shame. And it's shame that leads to secrecy. So shame is, just in case everybody doesn't know, is different from guilt. Guilt is, I feel bad about what I did. Shame is, I feel bad about who I am. And I think there's a great deal of shame that mothers, Jewish mothers, white mothers, people who have not had a lot of experience with the prison industrial complex and the criminal justice system can feel. And it's about the unreasonable expectations that have been on mothers always. to be the ideal mother, like have a career, but always be available to your children. All these things are impossible. And when something goes wrong with a person, it doesn't have, kid sounds young. When someone goes wrong with a person, there's a tendency to say, yeah, but I mean, look at their mother. And as a psychotherapist, I have participated in this. Everybody, I do not have a client in my individual practice who does not, when they want to tell me how their partner is so difficult to live with, does not go back to telling me about their mother. And so when people try to then say, oh, Liz, it's not your fault, I'm like, it's not totally not my fault though either. Obviously, I played some part here. I maybe zigged when I should have zagged. Or as I always say, I never took my eye off the ball, but I often had my eye on the wrong ball. I was not a laissez-faire parent in any way. And he's a complicated human being, that kid of mine. And I was on it, but I missed a lot of things. And being who he is, he's very quick to tell me all the time every horrible thing I ever did. And I think to myself, that's so interesting. It's not the things I feel guilty about. And many times I think, okay, I hear how that thing was hard for you, but you know what? Do that again. I still believe in that. But it's when the shame is overwhelming that you don't want to tell anybody. And that leads to secrecy, and secrecy leads to isolation. So the women in my group and the people in the Hindu group who are not just mothers have pretty much told nobody where their sons are. Okay, that's not easy. Maybe they have, I have like some, big New York City life and I'm with people and new people all the time. And maybe they don't, they're having suburban lives or something. But there are people who say, oh, how many children do you have? Oh, and what's your son up to? And they say things like, he's with the government. He's in the army. And I'm like, it's not good. It's not good for you to keep that secret. So there's one woman in the group whose son has a life sentence, and he has a brother who has two children. And so the brother and the children, the inmates' nieces, visit him in prison all the time. And so she's like 4, and she's like, why isn't Uncle David like coming to my birthday party? And they're like, well, he's kind of, he's working, he's helping people. He's a peer counselor at his prison. He's helping people. And they're like, she's like, but every day? Why can't he come out? I'm like, she's gonna be furious. Now, their fear is she won't love him anymore if they say what he did and why he's there. And I think, I see this all the time. I've worked with donor-conceived children and parents who don't want to say. What people get mad at way more than the content is the withholding of information. She loves Uncle David. She's going to love Uncle David forever. Her father knows what Uncle David did. That's his brother. He still wants to visit him in prison. But the fear of the rejection, the fear of the judgment keeps everybody silent, and the silence keeps them isolated.
So in your groups, Liz, do you find that you kind of lifting the veil of secrecy and helping these mothers, if not normalize it, at least be less shameful about it?
That's my goal, but it's not easy. I don't, and as a therapist, we have to be careful about advice giving. Like, easy for me to say, I don't live in your community. Many people, Hinda's done a survey it's maybe now getting a little old, maybe 8 years old or something, needs to be redone. But people were rejected by their synagogues for their sons' crimes. So I have written an article that you mentioned, and Slate, I'm willing to mention their name, a large online magazine, wanted to publish it. They spent 2 months editing it and illustrating, figuring out the illustration and doing this thing they called framing. Doesn't matter what that is. We're all ready to go. And I write to them to say, what days are coming out? And this was after 2 months, but we were like right there. And they said, oh, we just looked up your son and his crime. And well, I'm sorry, we'll give you a kill fee. We're not publishing it. I said, wait a minute. That's the whole point of my article, is that mothers should not be held responsible for the crimes of their sons. And they said, no, no, it's not the crime, Liz. Of course it is. It's not the crime, Liz. It's that you didn't tell the whole story in your article. And I'm like, I didn't say what whole story. I didn't do with anything he did. What? I gave up.
Mhm.
I had a piece, it will be coming out in the Huffington Post, and that's like a 4-month delay. And so I wrote to my editor there and said, could you take a look now? Because I don't want to look forward to this for 4 months. And then at the last minute, you're going to decide you're not going to publish it. And so he looked at it, he said, oh, yeah, okay, that's fine. We're going to publish it, but you can't use your name. You have to do it under a pseudonym. And I'm like, okay. Okay. I mean, I offered Slate to do it anonymously or under a pseudonym because I don't need to tell my story. My son does not certainly need me to tell the story, but I want it to be for other mothers. So take me out of it.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
they were too
Now, I have
afraid.
another follow-up question because you talked at the beginning, or I introduced you to the need to have more services and the lack and making things more visible. What do you think needs to be done around this? Some of the steps that seem necessary in lifting the veil and providing service.
There are many, many organizations that provide a multitude of diverse services for prisoners, formerly incarcerated people, and supports. I need there to be a recognition that mothers are doing the lion's share. And I left this out, but it's really critical I say it. It leads to serious health disparities in the mothers. And I asked the mothers in my group, every one of them had some serious major health problem. And it's not like it becomes the new normal. It turns out the longer your son is incarcerated, the more likely you are to suffer a serious health condition. So we've got to be, if the mothers don't want to tell their people, their cousins, their friends, their synagogues, they have to have other places. There are many articles and many services for children of incarcerated parents
Mhm.
and for, about the children who have incarcerated parents and about what it's like to be a parent in prison. There's also some, plenty written about significant others in, but there's really barely anything. So I would also like there to be more research on this population.
Excellent. This is quite fascinating. Now, I'm really curious, though, in terms of why you're only focusing on mothers of sons. I know there's a smaller population of mothers of women in prison, but why are you only focusing on sons?
Because 93% of all prisoners are men. And so it's a shorter term thing. It seems more targeted, but yes, of course. I mean, I've not worked with any mother of a daughter. I've read some things by them occasionally in one of the Facebook groups, but only occasionally. This is
Uh,
a mother and son problem because this is what the world is.
Okay, good. And also, the population of Jews in prison. Are you aware of how many Jews there are in prison? I think it's a very small percentage. I mean, it's under, but do you have the
Oh,
number?
you have the number, and that's how I know it. So why don't you tell us?
I can't remember what it was.
I'm going to tell you, it's like something like 1/10 of 1%.
Yeah,
It's
that big.
tiny. But when I looked for a prison to ask the judge to send him to, I wanted one with a decent Jewish population because it's not been that good for all the mothers in my group. It's not been that good for their sons. But there are, I mean, 20, uh, like 20 real Jews, but they're Jewish in a way in prison. I'm kind of going off the topic, so feel free to stop me. They're very picky about who gets to be a Jew, and that really hurts my feelings.
Yeah.
And Aleph, it's got to be the mother, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. And there are, okay, so maybe somebody wants to come to services for the grape juice and a piece of challah. They're hungry. So what? And in prison, like groups or cliques, I don't mean gangs per se, but a gang could be one, are called cars. And so my son is in the Jewish car. He could also be in the New York car. So at the chow hall, you sit with your car. And he was almost kicked out of his leadership position because he was going to allow this guy who wants to eat with the Jews. They're not getting better food. He wanted to sit at the table. And my son um, didn't kick him out.
Mhm.
So we ultimately had to speak to that guy. There was also another quick story. There is a blind man in prison, and he helped oh, I know. He's the bunkie, celly, whichever one you call them, um, of one of his friends. And so he's an anti-Semite. He just plain old is. But he asked my son to help walk him to chow, and he said yes. And the Jews were like, no, you may not help him. He's terrible. And so he went and he spoke to him and he said, you got to do something about this. Apologize to these people. Rethink all of this. I mean, my son is a major introvert, a shoegazer and a mumbler. He's not the charismatic leader, but he somehow got it to work out and he can walk the guy to chow now.
Amazing. Liz, just a few more follow-up questions and then we'll call it a day.
Sure.
How would you describe your relationship with your son at this time?
I love that question. So thank you. I mean, my son will never miss an opportunity to call me on saying the wrong word. I already told you that 3 times. You don't remember anything. I mean, eye rolly, he is just one of those. But he says he loves me for the first time ever at the end of every phone call. And part of me feels like, you goddamn better. I mean, look at what I do for you.
Uh-huh.
The other thing is, like, think about, dear listeners, your relationship with your grown children. You do things together. You go to a restaurant, you share a meal, you go take a walk, maybe. You're all around the family thing. I imagine you have to sit knee to knee for 3 hours with nothing between you. I mean, and when I say to him, so what's new? He's like, how many times do I have to tell you? It's Groundhog Day in here. Nothing is new. How are the Jews? What happened Friday night? Anybody cry? I'm not doing it. I live prison all day. I need it to not be prison. And I'm
So
like,
what do you talk about?
yeah, exactly. Um, I, our relationship is best on ideas. He is a huge reader, so I always say, what are you reading? I mean, Okay, so now he's writing his third book, and it's science fiction. So this one involves things like post-humanism. I don't know what that is. The mind-body problem. Okay, what? Okay, so we talk about ideas. He says, I'm not comfortable with silence, but just one more criticism. But um, the other day when I spoke to him, I said something about, it doesn't matter. A story came up about someone's son unexpectedly dying. And I said, could you not die? And he said, okay. And then I said, do you ever worry about me dying? And he said, when he first went into prison, he was obsessed with his fear of me dying, that his fear was that I would die and he wouldn't get a chance to be with me again.
Yeah.
And I mean, oddly, if I ever imagined my death, which is nearly never, or a deathbed, I'd say truly never. I never pictured him there. He just doesn't show that kind of interest in me. And the other thing is, he's very dependent on me now. I mean, I'm putting the money in. I hear how much he hates saying, could you put some money in commissary, please? Like he can't even bear to say it. He hates the dependence. And it's total. And I try to be, hey, how's it going? You need any money? Are we due for that? Like, I don't want him to feel the shame, the infantilization of being someone who needs to say, mommy, can I have some money?
Right. So
But
Liz, go ahead, please.
I was just going to end by saying, crazily, our relationship is better by far than it's ever been.
It sounds like it. It's getting deeper and deeper and more connected as the
You
years.
got to need a need. And I used to try to leave sooner because I'm just like, get me out of here. That's how I'm like, just get me out of here. I hate it. And he's like, you just got here. And I'm like, okay. But 3 hours is my absolute limit.
Uh-huh. Now, as we wrap ourselves up here, are there any messages that you would like people who are watching this to take away? Kind of a couple of points that are just to linger in their brains to mull over.
Thank you. I think that's a great gift to give me. I would like people to remember that this could happen to any of us. I once asked the women in the mothers group, what do you wish the world knew? And they all say, if it happened to me, it could happen to anyone. You, you cannot separate yourself. You want to blame that mother that she was bad, she neglected, she was too this, not enough that. It could happen to any of us. And therefore, we are one step away from these mothers, and they deserve our support and our care. And I would like people to know that when someone tells you, if you ask where their son is and they tell you they're in prison, that their crime is not what's relevant. What's relevant is how they're doing. And can you see them? Some mothers can't see their kids but once every 3 years.
Quite a story, Liz, quite a heartrending story and beautifully told. And I'm really grateful for the interview. And we're going to wrap it all up now and tune in for our next interview, which will be forthcoming within the next couple of weeks. Thank you all very much for tuning in through the Institute of Jewish Spirituality and Society. Thank you.
Thank you.